Hey guys, how's it going? Today I'm bringing you a new series with just a few chapters, so if you like it, make sure to leave a lot of comments so I can bring part 2. Imagine you are about to be executed because everyone in your village thinks you're a sorcerer. Well, to be fair, you kind of are, and you do have some weird magic, but that's not the point. Even though you don't believe in gods that much, in your final moments, you still pray for some kind of divine help. And lucky for you, a waifu goddess actually shows up to save your life. Pretty awesome, right? But now she gives you a mission. Your job is to build an online world where people from another dimension can enter and play inside the game. This story is super fun, I hope you enjoy it. The story begins with Peter, the cool-haired master necromancer, introducing himself. But look at the mess, our hero is tied to a stake ready to become barbecue, and all he can think is, damn, a handsome guy like me dying like this? The crowd is furious, shouting for him to burn already, poor guy. They call him a body-snatching, bone-obsessed pervert, and Peter gets pissed, saying that's pure prejudice. Some nobody accuses him of robbing corpses and even claims he got cheated on because of it. Total chaos. Peter, in flames, begs any entity, divine or not, to save him, promising anything and everything. And wouldn't you know it, someone responds, saying the deal is accepted. A mysterious light shines brightly in the sky, catching everyone's attention. This light descends toward our protagonist in a total savior vibe. Arms made of pure light wrap around Peter in the middle of the blaze. Is this a rescue? Out of nowhere he wakes up, lying in a dark forest, a bit lost and totally confused. His red eyes suddenly open, showing he's very much alive. Peter sits up, looks at the starry sky, and wonders if he died and went to heaven. He reflects that he wasn't exactly a role model before dying. So the shameless guy decides that in the afterlife, he's going to have fun, and starts stripping down to fly free as a bird. Naked in the middle of the woods, Peter notices some bones scattered around and doesn't understand anything. He thinks with a blank face that this place looks more like hell than paradise. But then he gives a sly smile and thinks, so what, nothing to fear anymore. Totally showing off and still naked, he shouts that he's alone out here. But wait, a waifu maid appears behind him. Our hero gets scared stiff, turning around quickly. Her hair sways a bit with the sudden movement. Focus on the mysterious waifu, all dolled up in the middle of nowhere. She giggles, and the shameless one gets all flustered, asking what that look is about. Now dressed, Peter asks if she was the one who saved him from the fire. The white-haired waifu directly asks if he's a master necromancer. He, all full of himself, confirms that yes, he's the genius master necromancer, Peter the Handsome. Like a true gentleman, our hero asks what such a beautiful lady is doing in such a rundown place. She replies that she is the system, and that this maid form is just to make the conversation easier, leaving Peter confused. The system explains they're developing the area and need a top-tier necromancer, and since he agreed to help, he was brought there. Peter gets the trade, she saved him so he could work for her, and the system confirms it, plus there's a reward. The waifu system offers Peter the chance to become a god with a totally serious face. Our hero's jaw drops, asking if she can really give him divine necrotic power, can you believe it? She explains that if he becomes an employee, he'll get infinite in-game money and divine status later, based on his performance. The maid waifu stares at him, waiting for an answer with those pretty eyes. She lowers her head slightly, still waiting for Peter to say he accepts the offer. The shameless guy clutches her leg, all emotional, saying he's down for anything. Poor guy is desperate. The system gets mad at Peter's boldness, a vein popping on her forehead. Holding a glowing cube, she stares at the protagonist, who's still clinging to her leg. Without mercy, the waifu smacks our hero square in the face with a cube. Peter cries on the ground, saying not even his mom ever hit him, poor thing, he's an orphan. Floating a bit, the system announces the ritual is over, and he now has divinity. With his face all squished, Peter asks in disbelief if it's really over, and if he's actually a god now. But the waifu isn't playing, she kicks the poor guy while he's down. She tells him to get up and go to work because now he's her employee, and Peter reflects on being both god and slave at once. He quickly pulls himself together, smiles, and asks the boss what his first task is now. The waifu system gives Peter his first order, to make people. He doesn't get it and repeats, make people? The shameless one totally misunderstands and says he'll do it. Just tell her to come over here. Our hero grabs the system all flirty, thinking something completely different. He pins her to the ground, asking what exactly she wants to do here. Peter, with a mischievous look, says it's obviously about making people. The waifu is shocked, her outfit slightly torn from his advance. She uses a shining power and pushes the shameless protagonist away. He's left stunned, unable to believe what just happened. The system explains that making people means reviving the dead, not procreation. Peter is surprised, asking, "Resurrect the dead?" since he only ever worked with bones before. She confirms that necrotic divinity allows perfect resurrection, and he celebrates. The system notices his indecent dream while Peter looks at the bones around him. Our hero picks up a skull from the ground, seeming to think of something. He hugs the skull, drooling, saying it's a big, beautiful woman. What a nut. Peter uses his new skill on the skull, which glows with blue energy. The bones magically come together, forming a complete floating skeleton. And from the skeleton emerges a gorgeous pink-haired waifu with little clothing. What talent! The system watches the scene with a neutral, maybe surprised expression. But the waifu system sees the shameless one trying to kiss the newly created girl. What a pervert. He turns to the boss all proud, asking if his waifus aren't beautiful. Our hero kneels, showing his work to the boss all happy. And he didn't make just one, but an entire harem of naked waifus for himself. The system explains this is where players will show up in droves soon. She talks about creating NPCs in a village. But where's Peter? He's vanished. The shameless one is in the middle of his waifu harem, feeling like the luckiest guy alive. The boss is speechless, completely furious at the employees' scene. Our hero realizes the boss didn't really like his idea. The system returns to her glowing energy form and stares down at Peter below. The waifus are scared and embarrassed by the glowing entity there. The system's energy form hurls Peter far away with force. Our hero hits the ground, wrecked near the maid boss's feet. The system informs him he's now the chief of the newbie village. Poor guy. Peter on the ground smiles weakly, thinking the news is good despite everything. He looks so exhausted that his soul nearly leaves through his mouth. A classic. The scene shifts to worker skeletons chopping trees in the dark forest. An axe cuts through wood powerfully, showing the hard labor. Peter sits on a log, analyzing a map while the skeleton works behind him. The map shows basic buildings like bar, tavern, clinic, and forge. He thinks map in hand about what else the village needs to thrive. The shameless one has a genius idea. A brothel would be great, he thinks, excited. But the system appears behind him with a not-so-friendly aura. Scary. Peter freezes and tries to play it off, saying, "Hotel! I meant hotel, boss!" The waifu glares at him with a deadly look that nearly freezes his soul. He tries to smooth it over by hugging the boss, saying he just wanted to help her job. Peter brags that the boss has no sense, not even to build sewers away from the well. He imagines the waifu system breaking everything and says she couldn't handle construction. The system ignores it and asks if he finished resurrecting the dead like she asked. Embarrassed, Peter says the full ritual is very hard to do, so... The boss agrees that only someone with the God of Death's power can do it. It's complex. Our hero says he needs to tweak things for each race. Raising 100 a day is good. The waifu tells him to focus only on that, and Peter laughs, saying he's already done a 7th resurrection right there. The system stops instantly, not believing what she just heard, and asks him to repeat what he said. Like, "You did what?" The protagonist gets a little nervous, unsure if he should repeat or pretend he didn't hear the question. He ends up confessing he brought back to life 5,871 creatures, including 2,333 humans, and also 1,314 elves, plus 666 beastmen, all together. On top of that, he resurrected 520 dwarves, 999 gnomes, and even 36 demons. And to top it off, he also brought back 3 angels, like it's just another Tuesday. Peter then tells the new waifus to stay quietly in the cave until he decides what to do. He starts finding it weird to have so many different races around and wonders what happened in that world's past. The boss is in shock because he resurrected over 1,000 creatures so fast it was like blinking. He asks why she doesn't do it herself, and she replies she only has 1% power and gets tired easily. The shameless one, always eager, suggests they switch roles. He'll build, and she can handle the resurrections. The system has the most frozen expression in the universe, showing no reaction. She says she doesn't even exist for real in Nazes and therefore can't use mental power on the living beings here. The system proudly adds she can't cast any magic there, or use any abilities at all. Peter is stunned, like, how can she say that with a straight face? She explains she called him exactly for that, to resurrect the dead, and he understands this is the great divine mission. He then says he'll keep building and leaves the dead stuff to her, turning his back all smug. Our hero stops midway, gives a cheeky smile, and says the village is already done. The boss is a bit lost, like, what do you mean you finished everything already? He explains she didn't notice because the strong presence of the dead was covering it all. The The system casts a spell that clears the dark presence because players will arrive soon. Suddenly the magic clears everything, revealing a sunny, beautiful village ready in place of all that darkness. Peter proudly shows off the village and asks if she didn't think the transformation was amazing. The system is impressed and admits she underestimated him, saying he's perfect for the role, even granting him the name Tai Pair. Peter suddenly faints on top of her, saying the effort to erase the dark presence drained him. The waifu looks at him collapsed on her, somewhere between surprised and annoyed, like she can't believe this guy. She already raises her hand with that look of someone about to settle things by force. The protagonist jumps back quickly, begging her not to do anything, practically pleading. She sighs deeply, decides to let it go, but warns that the resurrected have neither memory nor intelligence. Our hero smiles confidently, grips the map tight and says he already has a plan for that. He found some nearby villages and wants to use his power to copy the memories of their residents. His plan is to copy, edit, and paste the memories into the heads of the undead. That way, the resurrected will seem like real people with stories and normal routines. The system says memory alone isn't enough. They still lack the intelligence to truly function. Our hero calmly responds that she doesn't need to worry because he also creates dreams and personalities. He gives a big confident smile like, "Leave it to me." The protagonist points to himself and declares he's the almighty god of that world. The boss just watches him shout, "I'm a god," from atop a stump, all emotional, using his power. Peter excitedly says he already tested it on one undead and asks her to check the result. The tailor, a blue-haired waifu, dreams of marrying Tai Pair, a true romantic. The tavern owner, a red-haired waifu, wants nothing to do with marriage, totally stuck up. And the grocery store owner, a dark-haired waifu, just wants the shameless one in her bed, just like that. The shameless one hugs all three, promising to fulfill each of their dreams one by one, all excited. The boss looks at him with that dark stare and asks if his nonsense is over. The protagonist pauses, reflects on life, and says maybe his time has come. After all, death is inevitable. He panics, apologizes, and promises to fix everything, asking her to go easy on him. The waifus keep acting normally in the village, offering food and goods to the players. The system watches everything from above, seeming to analyze whether what he did will actually work. The system thinks she might have overestimated Peter and decides she'll have to keep an eye on him while he throws himself in the mud, complaining about her lack of humor. The boss warns that this phase is almost over, and now they need to create a level system. And he already lifts his head, thinking about the next task. The protagonist is surprised and asks what this level system thing is. The waifu floats and confirms that besides NPCs, the players also need this whole system. The system starts glowing, wrapped in a blue interface, revealing a digital nature behind it all. She explains that players level up by fighting and doing missions. The higher their level, the stronger they get. Peter sees the level names like Mortal, Transcendent, Epic, Mythic, and finally understands what she means by this new system. The boss adds that the monsters near the newbie village will also have their own power levels. A graphic example shows that defeating higher level monsters gives players more experience. The little hero in the example defeats the boar and levels up quickly, becoming much stronger. The system explains that levels above 90 are already considered Divine Realm, a much more serious thing. She casually mentions that Peter, by the way, is already level 90, and he's completely shocked. Our hero clenches his fist, all pumped up, and laughs, realizing he had no idea he was so strong. He thinks fast, and concludes that this means he doesn't need to be afraid of her anymore, right? The shameless one gives a mischievous little grin, already full of new and dangerous ideas. With a mocking laugh, he asks the system what her level is then, just to mess with her. She casually drops that she's level 9,999, and Peter is so shocked he spits blood and instantly loses HP. The protagonist learns the hard way that a boss is always a boss, no matter what level he is. The waifu immediately gives him his next mission, to create quests for the village players. Peter gets thoughtful because creating missions sounds like a really cool thing to do. The system explains that making quests is basically like building the main storyline of the game. Peter doesn't understand what a main story is, and she explains that the goal is to create something lasting, divided into parts. The boss says he can even use his own life experiences if he wants to build the story. Our hero gets thoughtful, trying to understand the idea of using his life as a quest. He asks for a little time to think, and the waifu says it's okay. She'll take care of things meanwhile. The newbie village is ready and full of life with all the NPCs Peter created. Arriving at the village entrance, the system comments that many players will pass through there. The two watch the village's movement, all sunny and full of trees. Peter yawns and says they'll need more people to work, like janitors and porters. The protagonist gets an idea to find workers, which already puts the system on alert. He tells the boss not to worry because he'll resurrect some strong orcs to help. Easy. But he suddenly stops and starts thinking better. Is that really a good idea? He imagines the wife who's drooling over a muscular, strong orc, a real man type. Jealous, Peter angrily breaks a skeleton, shouting that he won't allow male orcs around. He looks at some bones and realizes that they seem to be from a strong female orc, but that complicates things. He imagines an ugly orc blowing him a kiss and already regrets the thought. What a nightmare. Sitting among skulls, Peter gives up the idea of orcs and decides to drop it. The system arrives asking if he found good bones because he's taking too long. The shameless one gives that sly grin and says he had a better idea than resurrecting orcs. The scene changes to a dark city called Kalamogan City where someone is already yelling, demanding everything. In a dark alley of Kalamogan City, some thugs threaten a man who says he already handed over the bread. The man tries to protect his little daughter, Ching Ning, who cries scared behind him. One of the thugs kicks the father hard, throwing him far in an absurd act of cowardice. Little Ching Ning runs to her father lying on the ground, calling him with a heavy heart. The thief looks at the bread with disgust. Bread? Just this? What crap? The creep says bread is no good, and starts looking at the girl like she's his next snack. Ching Ning curls up in fear behind her father, who tries to shield her with his body. The father is horrified, and asks if the guy's gone mad wanting to do that. He yells in rage that she's his daughter, trying to protect her with everything he's got. The thugs laugh, saying they don't care. They want meat they haven't eaten in a while. The father grips the hand of the thug holding a knife, trying to stop him from doing anything stupid. His face shows all the effort and tension, trying to protect his daughter to the very end. He shoves the thug hard and yells for his daughter to run and not look back. The girl hesitates but eventually turns and runs, trying to escape the nightmare. Ching Ning runs through the alley, crying and screaming for help, wanting to save her dad. In the chaos, she trips and drops her stuffed bear on the ground. The thug grabs the girl and threatens to skin her. It's horrifying, she screams, calling her father in despair. The father screams her name, Ching Ning, watching the blade descend, powerless to stop it. Suddenly, the father finds himself alone, gasping, realizing the thug vanished out of nowhere. Strange. Our hero Peter appears, holding Ching Ning in his arms. He arrived to save the day. Peter faces the thug with Ching Ning in his arms. The man asks who he is. Our hero attacks the thug with a powerful, swift blow. The impact cracks the ground, showing the protagonist's immense strength. The thug falls back, terrified, asking what Peter is. The coward tries crawling away, but Peter stops him, asking if he plans to run. Our hero prepares his necrotic magic with blue energy at his fingertips. Flaming skeletons rise from the ground. The thug screams, "Monster!" in terror. Peter, with a cold look, gives the order for the skeletons to kill the thug. He turns, smiling at the father and daughter now protected by the skeletons. The protagonist offers them a job with food, housing, and medical care. The father hugs Ching Ning, suspicious, asking who Peter is anyway. Our hero gives a side smile, asking it if he means him. With a confident pose, Peter introduces himself as the chief of a village. Scene change. Peter is surrounded by villagers complaining about everything in the village. He laughs awkwardly, trying to handle the flood of problems from the residents. The village chief asks for calm and says he'll fix everything, just so they'll leave. The villagers leave grumbling, even talking about overthrowing him. Despite all his hard work, Peter sighs in relief when the crowd finally disperses. He walks through the village thinking it's finally over. What a struggle. Our hero notices little Ching Ning spying on him from behind a tree. Peter suddenly appears and asks Ching Ning what she's doing there, scaring the girl. The little one gets all shy, stammering without knowing exactly how to respond. Our hero pats her head gently, showing a kind side. He tells her to head back soon, since he's worked a lot these past days. Ching Ning confirms that she was saved by Peter and says he worked hard too. Her father, Garrick Chen, offers a drink to Peter while talking about his heroic ancestors. Peter tastes the drink and is surprised by the aroma and quality, so good. Garrick explains the skill comes from his ancestors, and Peter puts him in charge of the tavern. The system approaches, calling for Peter as he walks. Besides the Chens, Peter took in another 100 refugees, giving them jobs. The village grew. He turns and greets the boss, who has just arrived. The system comments that it looks like he already solved the labor shortage problem. Peter, a bit awkward, says he barely fixed it. There are still problems like a near revolt. The boss warns him to think carefully since hiring these people is his responsibility. The shameless one notices the refugee waifus and thinks his harem just grew again. The system gives him a not-so-happy glare, cutting off Peter's buzz. She asks if he finished assigning habitats to the wild beasts as she asked. Peter panics, realizing he forgot the task because he was busy with other things. Ghostly hands grab our hero, leaving him tangled and frightened. The system stares Peter down, asking why he's not answering. Did he forget the task? Peter stammers, not knowing how to escape the boss. How could I? He bolts away quickly, shouting, "Boss, don't talk, I'm busy now, bye." The scene shows a peaceful, sunny forest with no one around. Suddenly our hero sees a nasty fight, a winged tiger versus a sinister wolf. Curious, Peter uses his detection skill on the winged tiger to check the stats. He's surprised by the tiger's rank, 15 to 29, in a level 10 to 15 area. The winged tiger roars loudly, baring sharp fangs ready to attack. The winged beast leaps at the wolf, starting the battle. The wolf, with crystals on its back and red eyes, growls back fearlessly. In a quick move, the wolf bites the tiger's neck hard. Blood splatters. Our protagonist is left open-mouthed. What an unexpected twist. Peter watches the wolf eating the tiger and uses detection again. What kind of beast is this? The gray wolf's stats are insane. Rank 70 to 84. Power 84. He thinks a wolf this strong shouldn't be here, and maybe he needs to move it. The big wolf stares at Peter, growling low, showing sharp teeth. The protagonist decides to just leave the powerful wolf right there, sitting behind him. Peter senses something strange and looks up suspiciously. The gray wolf jumps at him with everything it's got, but Peter activates a blue shield. The wolf's paw hits Peter's hand, which is protected by energy. Out of nowhere, Peter is petting the big wolf's belly like it's a happy puppy. Peter finds his divine power very useful to tame and calm wild beasts. Next step. He sits on a rock and gives the beasts a lecture about a discipline and their posts. What a guy. The little creatures seem to love him, clinging to our hero and begging for more. Peter sends all the beasts back to their assigned areas. Go, go. He uses a projected blue interface to plan the distribution of beasts by level. The map shows the level zones. He looks for where to place level 1 to 5 creatures. Our hero finds a common rat in the grass, wondering if it'll work. He picks the rat up by the tail and finds it odd that even such a weak creature is approaching him. The rat's stats are extremely low, rank 0 to 1. He finds it unsuitable for training. Peter's eyes light up and an idea pops into his head. He grabs 2 rats squirming by their tails, ready for some mischief. Sitting on the rock, he begins modifying the rats with his power, listening to their squeaks. A horrible, stronger mutant rat emerges, rank 0 to 4, with better stats. Our hero approves his bizarre creation with a thumbs up. That's it, beastie. He looks over the village from above, thinking it's ready. Little does he know he's made the weirdest monster for players. With everything ready, it's time to call the players. The scene focuses on planet Earth far away. The view zooms in, showing a modern city on Earth at night. A young man sees a new ad on his phone while walking through the brightly lit city. Phone, tablet, and video game screens all display the same notification arriving for everyone. The ad reveals the launch of the holographic VRM Nicer and invites players to the closed beta. A residential building appears at night with a single window lit. A young man wearing VR glasses is at the computer, panting as he unzips his pants. What a scene. The screen shows a woman with black nails and a collar, very provocative. The guy's hand grabs a tissue from the box on the table. I wonder what for. With the VR headset, he lets out a suspicious giggle while looking at the screen. The image on the screen changes to show the woman slowly removing her clothing strap. A close-up shows her hand pulling the thin bra strap. The guy gets all excited by the scene, making weird noises and holding the tissue. Focus on the woman's hands on the dark screen, almost touching something. Suddenly, a loading screen interrupts the guy's fun. He stops, surprised. A pop-up ad for the Nicer game appears on the screen, limiting beta access to the first 50. The player gets annoyed because the ad ruined his aesthetic moment. He tries to close the ad by clicking the tiny X in the screen corner. He clicks the mouse multiple times, desperately trying to close the ad. But instead of closing, the ad opens in full screen. What just happened? Furious, the guy removes the VR glasses, cursing the fake X button of the damn ad. He decides to install an ad filter called 720 AD filter on the computer. The filter loads on the screen. He waits eagerly, hoping it works this time. Did it work? But the Nicer ad appears again, saying, "Strong cleaning rate, 0 unfiltered ads." The guy explodes with rage, slamming the table and yelling, "What kind of scam is this?" He puts the VR glasses back on, thinking the ad is gone and he can return to his sweet character. But the screen shows the video has been deleted for being too adult. He's furious. Damn it, he thinks, taking off the glasses, visibly irritated by the situation. He He relaxes in the chair, thinking only 50 people in the world will play nicer. Interesting. Looking at an old photo with his father, he thinks that if the game is bad, he doesn't want it online. The scene shifts to the Google building at night. An employee reports the damage from the nicer virus, and Doyen, CEO Huang He of Google Network Technology, listens carefully to the report. Huang He looks tense, thinking the nicer ad is too powerful and hard to counter. He looks at the ad on his PC and wonders if VR holographic tech from fiction has become real. The CEO's phone rings. It's his gamer son. Huang He notices the limited beta marketing tactic. He answers and is asked about a regional disconnection system. The father might have. Huang He hangs up, seeming to consider his son's request. He turns to his assistant and tells her to start what he already mentioned. The assistant holds a USB drive with the disconnection program and asks if they'll get caught. The CEO firmly says he'll take full responsibility for what happens. The gamer's son hangs up with a look like he got what he wanted. The guy's computer screen shows a 6-second countdown. As the countdown runs, the assistant plugs in the USB. The internet crashes and the guy clicks yes at the last second. His login to the nicer game works without issues with the ID Stella. He thanks his dad. Through his bedroom window, the guy sees men in black suits getting into a van parked outside. A girl tries to scream for help, but her mouth is muffled and her eyes are full of tears. The masked kidnappers carry the unconscious girl near the van, and one of them shouts for help. They hold the girl tightly when suddenly a huge foot appears. Everyone asks who's there. Shige, the genius martial arts student, appears and asks what they think they're doing. One of the thugs laughs, saying another idiot just walked into their trap. The kidnapper cracks his knuckles, threatening, and wants to know if the guy will get in the car willingly, or if the older brothers will have to give a little help while they surround Shige on all sides. One of the thugs charges, aiming a punch directly at Shige's face, but Shige easily blocks the blow, leaving the thug confused, not understanding anything. The student executes a judo move and slams the attacker hard to the ground. Without wasting time, he lands a precise kick and knocks out the thug who is already down. The other stronger kidnapper runs in, cursing, and rushes at Shige from behind. He managed to grab Shige's jacket, pulling hard, trying to immobilize him. Shige turns quickly, already prepared to counterattack with a determined look. He grabs the enemy's face tightly before the other can react. With a firm move, Shige slams the thug's head hard against the ground. The two thugs lie groaning in pain near the van, and the fight seems to be over. Shige looks toward the van, thinking the kidnapped girl must be inside. But then a third hooded figure appears, standing next to the van's door. The hooded figure stares at Shige with a cold gaze and clenches his fist tightly. He charges at an absurd speed while Shige prepares for the impact. Shige takes a direct blow to the stomach and feels the force of the hooded figure. Even so, he reacts and lands a palm strike to the opponent's chest. But his eyes widen in shock as he realizes something terrible. A knife is lodged in his chest and blood starts gushing out as the pain spreads. The blade is deep, and he hears someone telling the hooded figure to hurry because they are out of time. With his hand covered in blood, Shige thinks he's going to die, while the hooded figure says he's too small and needs help. Out of nowhere, Peter appears, smiling, and says he finally found Shige. Barely able to move, Shige points to the van and asks Peter to save the girl inside. Peter looks at the van and asks if this is the car, then lifts the vehicle with just one hand. Screams for help and noises come from inside the van being lifted by Peter. An explosion occurs inside the car, and Shige can hardly believe what he's seeing. Peter holds the rescued girl in his arms and tells Shige that she's fine, but that he can only take her soul. Shige's consciousness starts to fade, and he feels tired, asking if he's still alive. He wakes up in a warm and comfortable bed. Looking down, he notices he now has large breasts under the shirt and is left speechless. Shige sits up in bed, feeling the strange weight on his chest, trying to understand what's happening. He looks down in desperation and screams, asking where his dear old friend has gone. Peter appears smiling, telling him not to scream and letting him know that the operation was a success. The shameless one introduces himself as Peter, the leader of the new village, and welcomes Shige as the new martial arts hallmaster. Shige, now transformed, asks if New Village is the place where beginner players start in the game. Peter confirms with a smile and extends his hand, welcoming her to the world of Nicer. They talk in front of the martial arts hall, exchanging ideas about how to improve the game. Shige gets excited and asks if they created a technology similar to Sword Art Online, and Peter says yes. Our hero explains that the combat system between warriors and mages appears as players arrive and that he wanted her in charge. She comments that Peter should be the teacher since he lifted a car with one hand, but he says it's just because he's a high level. Shige understands and says she learned a lot about Earth's culture and how they popularize martial arts. Peter talks about kids practicing simple moves, and Shige thinks he doesn't really understand martial arts. The Spearmaster begins to remember the various fighter classes, like swordsmen and spearmen, and is impressed by the variety. The Shameless One smiles and makes a peace sign, while beginning to explain the second aspect of the ranking system. He says the ranks show players' strength levels, and that there are several classes, like swordsmen, and Shige says she's ready because she researched weapons. But what she really wants to know is about the magic system and asks to meet the Magister in charge of it. Peter feels awkward and admits that they don't have a magic system yet because they need to capture a Magister first. Shige is shocked to realize that everyone here was captured to work in the game. Our protagonist says there's one more thing to leave with her, pulling at something from his pocket. He shows 2 small red potions and a glowing, golden, sharp object. The blonde asks in surprise what those strange items could be. Peter explains that they are special healing items for players and suggests she sell them at the martial arts hall. She holds the items, worried about selling them while teaching, or if someone will steal the potions. The village chief suggests charging for lessons and giving sales tasks to those who can't pay, managing stock and cash. Shige asks with suspicion if this plan isn't basically deceiving the players. Peter makes a cute and innocent face, saying he's just strengthening them as a kind, benevolent leader. Winking, he confirms that he leaves the responsibility of selling the medicines to her. Our hero laughs, thinking that the medicine name is great, easy to remember, and it brands her product. The martial arts master rubs her forehead, annoyed, and asks what the name of the medicine is. Peter smiles mischievously, preparing to reveal the brilliant name he created. They're called shy-based medicines, he says, and she gets furious, breaking something. Controlling herself, Shige asks her final question. Why did he change her gender after saving her? He replies, smiling, that it was just a personal hobby, leaving her even more irritated. Peter reveals that he wanted to build a harem here, and she was going to be part of this honor. The blonde tightens her grip on the staff, and Peter laughs, stepping away from her. They stare at each other with intense looks, ready for the impending confrontation. Shige charges with her spear using the Brilliant Flower First technique. Next comes the Draconic Spear, a powerful and fast strike. She uses the Fierce Heavenly Dragon, and Peter screams about his hemorrhoids in shock. Our hero jumps away easily, and she thinks she was saved by a pervert. Scene changes to the system room. The entity observes a data sphere when she hears a noise. The system looks up in surprise at the sudden interruption, wondering what that was. Peter crashes through a screen or wall, flying straight into her room. He lands hard on the floor, right in front of the system's desk. The system asks what Peter is doing there, lying on the floor. He gets up sweating and greets the boss, saying he fought with the martial arts master, who's very strong. The entity says that, as it happens, she was just looking for him at that moment. Holding the data sphere, she informs him that he will produce the players as containers. Those 50 are today's work. Peter looks at the glowing sphere, confused, and asks what it is after all. A close-up of our hero's wide eyes shows his complete surprise. The sphere projects data on player number 1, Huang Huan, who wants to be a woman in the lewd game. Our protagonist tenses up, seeing that the player is a man but wants to be a woman, hoping he's not a pervert. The boss explains that the sphere is a multi-dimensional management system, and he will also manage the forum. Peter bangs his fist on the table, confused, asking, "Forum? What's a forum? Never heard of it." The system grabs him by the collar and reminds him she told him to study Earth's culture, asking if he skipped school. She asks what he learned then, as he denies slacking off in his studies. Proudly, Peter mentions the names of adult film actresses as examples of culture he learned. Hey. The entity asks with shining eyes what else he learned besides that. The Shameless One responds by mentioning animes like SAO, Kaimitsu, and Jujutsu Kaisen, but she tells him to forget it. The boss sits down and says she will teach him to use the forum, asking him to touch the sphere first. Peter's finger touches the blue light sphere, which begins to glow brighter. He sees the forum full of posts. Hackers who don't invade nicer, the disconnection incident, and complaints about pop-ups. The system explains his admin powers, deleting posts, pinning topics, banning users, and deleting negative comments. More posts appear on the general forum, complaining about the beta disconnection and suspecting the player Stella. Peter recognizes the forum nickname Stella. Interesting. He smiles, thinking that since it's like that, he will give a little help. With a virtual keyboard appearing, he begins to type his response on the forum. He writes that he could prove what Stella said is true, and sends it with a little laugh. The system pulls his ear, telling him to stop playing around and get back to work without sleeping until it's done. Peter agrees immediately, saying, "All right, boss," and quickly disappears before she changes her mind. He sighs, watching his skeletons work. Work never ends. But he thinks that at least resurrecting different beauties every day is a blessing for the shameless one. Focused again, he looks at the player Huang Quan's profile. The request for a lewd appearance catches our hero's attention. What could this be? With a smile and glowing hand, he says, "Leave it to me, player. I'll satisfy your wish." Using his powers, Peter creates a beautiful female character in a white dress with blue details, quite sensual. He boasts to the system, "I'm a genius," while she observes from a distance. The entity looks at the date. Only one day left before the closed beta of the game begins. While Peter works on the skeletons, a new player profile appears on the interface. Player number 2, Hangjia, wants shiny black hair and radiant white skin. Player 3, Liu Guanyu, wants something grand. Peter freaks out with the request for shiny black, red wrong. What is this grand appearance? He tries to calm down, thinking there must be a normal player among these requests. But player 4, Hichishui, wants a beautiful and graceful face as if kissed by the devil. Our hero loses patience, punches the interface, yelling that these requests are too much. What the hell? 2,000 years later. The new village now seems peaceful, the villagers working calmly. A villager notices that it suddenly got dark in the middle of the day. The villagers look up, seeing a huge shadow blocking the sun, wondering what that could be. Peter is exhausted on the ground, complaining that the ambiguous requests from the players are killing him. He gets up, remembering that today the players arrive and he needs to prepare quests and NPCs. Qingning runs to him, calling, "Village Chief!" Peter thinks about using her as an NPC. The girl desperately warns, "Chief, disaster is approaching. How tense!" A giant paw with sharp claws lands forcefully on the village ground. A huge dragon, Sunderer, level 85, appears, roaring as the villagers run. The villagers panic, crying out for help as the dragon prepares to attack. The creature strikes with its tail in a fiery breath, destroying part of the village. The fire consumes houses and crops, and the villagers cry, asking if the chief ran away. Peter appears with a serious look, telling the dragon it has gone too far. Our hero appears heroically amid the flames, facing the giant beast. The villagers see the chief and shout with joy, thinking he has come to save them at last. The protagonist lands gently right on the dragon's snout, striking a pose. Peter stares at the dragon and says that even if he doesn't understand, the dragon should know how to show something to the strong. He shouts, "Respect and fear," preparing to stomp with full force on the beast. The dragon receives a brutal stomp that buries its head in the ground with the impact. The impact of the stomp sends the villagers flying, and they protect themselves, scared. Peter jumps from the dragon's head to the ground, telling it to leave right now. He turns his back, saying that the dragon has lost its instincts to avoid bad luck, but the beast roars and prepares a massive fiery breath on his back. Our hero turns around, surprised and irritated by the audacity of the stubborn dragon. The dragon attacks with its tail, hitting Peter squarely with a strong blow. The protagonist flies far from the unexpected impact. Ouch, that hurt. Something dark flies quickly in the direction of Peter, who's lying on the ground. A system message appears. The closed beta of Nicer starts now. Peter smiles at the camera, telling everyone to stay tuned, more is coming. A Universal Studios movie clapperboard slams, indicating the end of the recording. The system, wearing glasses and holding a megaphone, sitting like a director, yells, "Cut! We're done!" Peter wipes his sweat, exhausted, saying acting is not easy. He almost died. The boss explains that the expansion went to Earth and the players will arrive at noon. Our hero says excitedly that he has been waiting for this and has already prepared a quest. The system praises his foresight, and Peter sees the reactions online through the sphere. Comments on the screen praise the dragon for being beautiful but terrifying because it looks so real. Other comments praise the character for being handsome, a legendary subjugator. More people comment that the kick was cruel. The dragon took a beating, poor thing. A blonde player reads all the crazy comments. Peter freezes in shock when he sees his handsome version reflected in the blue sphere. Our hero is confused and asks who the handsome guy in the blue projection is. The servant replies that it's him, but calls him unbounded in the video because he was ugly. She explains that a handsome guy attracts more viewers than his plain appearance. The servant suggests using the fake appearance later because he looked like a complete unknown. Peter is shocked by the word mediocre, appearing around him multiple times. The humiliation hurts more than getting punched in the face. Poor hero. A villager runs over, asking about his missing daughter with a worried face. The shameless one tells the father to relax because the daughter is an important part of the initial quest. The scene changes to the forest, where a girl appears, screaming for help from a tree. The little girl is in a panic, crying heavily and full of fear. She accuses Peter of lying, saying he abandoned her among the monsters. The girl's father remains distressed, even after the village chief tries to calm him. Peter smiles and assures that soon there will be people taking care of her safety there. The scene shifts back to Earth, and in Sterling's room, the closed beta is about to begin. On Earth, Sterling is excited because the game is about to start. He puts on the virtual reality goggles, saying that the new expansion looks amazing, and he can't wait to see it. The login screen appears, he remembers his password and types it quickly. At noon sharp, the login is accepted, and the message, "Welcome to Nicer, loading the game," appears. The screen went black, showing that the transition into the game was beginning. The player's view opened in the newbie village, everything very bright and clear. The player looked at their hands inside the game and realized they were delicate. Looking down, they were shocked to realize that their avatar was a girl. The avatar's blue eyes widened in surprise at the discovery. The sensation was very real, and the player's name was Stella, at level 1. She gave a mischievous smile, thinking of taking advantage of the situation first. The girl approached another player from behind, finding everything there quite fun. Suddenly a hand touched her shoulder, and she let out a high-pitched squeal. Cosmic got embarrassed and let out a nervous laugh. A muscular player appeared smiling and introduced himself as Vanguard, level 1. She replied that she was Stella, but used a male voice to disguise herself. Vanguard was impressed and asked if she was the famous guy from the forum. Another player appeared waving and said, "Hi, she was Your Majesty, level 1. Soon 2 more guys arrived, named Chase and Anti-Mage, also at level 1. Your Majesty looked at Anti-Mage and asked if he was the one known as Anti-Second Floor. Stella curiously asked who this Anti-Second Floor was. Vanguard became a bit embarrassed and cleared his throat. Anti-Mage explained, laughing, that he always placed second in the gaming forums. The group of players heard a ticking sound coming from somewhere. A notification appeared saying there were 50 players in the beta, but Cosmic could only see 4. Vanguard apologized, saying that he might be blocking her view because he was large. The girl's blue eyes widened when she looked forward again. A crowd of players appeared out of nowhere, causing a huge mess. The mission for the newbies was announced. Rescue the little girl Luna in the forest. Vanguard saw some tracks on the ground and said they were Luna's and that they should follow them. Excited, they shouted that they were going to save Luna and began following the tracks. Elsewhere, a different group of players was super excited about the new world. A message advised them to focus on the main quest, but they didn't seem to pay much attention. These players decided to head straight for the village, ignoring the rescue mission. Peter watched from afar, irritated, saying that humans never listen to advice. He complained, asking why they went to the village if the goal was to save Luna. Peter grumbled to the servants, saying they'd have to deal with their own choices now. Suddenly the ground trembled forcefully right where the group had chosen to go to the village. The earth began to crack right beneath the feet of the players in that group. A monstrous hand with claws appeared from the crack, scaring everyone. One player said they almost had a heart attack, thinking it was just a rat. A strong explosion came from inside the crack in the ground. The players were completely panicked by what they were seeing. The camera zoomed in on the giant mouth of a monstrous rat with sharp teeth. The monstrous rat grabbed one of the players while the others screamed to run. The captured player had an expression of pure terror on their face. The creature crushed the player's head with a bite that was fatal. Another player screamed, saying that his head had been ripped off and told everyone to run. A player looked back in despair, saying it was too late now. The surviving players were surrounded by several giant rats and begged not to be attacked. 2 players were frozen in fear, unable to move or say anything. Elsewhere, Cosmic's group heard the screams and saw a notification about deaths occurring. Your Majesty was shocked and asked if this world also had real dangers. Stella raised her hand seriously and told everyone to stop right there. She said to ignore the screams because they had another problem to solve. A bunch of smaller rats ran past them quickly through the grass. Cosmic became serious, warning that their group had its own problems now. The head of a giant monstrous rat appeared threateningly from the bushes. The monstrous rat turned its whole body and stared at Stella's group. Chase was afraid of dying, and Your Majesty noticed the huge rat. Blonde player Chase passed by running, shouting for them to get out of the way. She landed a powerful kick right in the giant rat's face, knocking it down. The other players, Cosmic, Anti-Mage, and Your Majesty, watched in surprise. Chase acted confident, saying the beast was weak and the others were impressed. Vanguard clenched his fist, seemingly thinking seriously about something. He then punched a nearby rock, breaking it completely. Wow. Vanguard explained that their bodies were stronger inside the game. Chase understood because she felt lighter, and Your Majesty commented on her strength. The group stared at the monstrous rat again, now seeming braver together. Peter, hidden, was eating chips, thinking that they didn't seem so foolish after all. The group of players managed to defeat the giant rat and celebrated, relieved. Our hero watched from afar, seeing everyone safe to continue their journey. Stella warned it that the tracks ended at that point, and Peter liked their teamwork. A thin voice called out quietly, "I'm here near them." They looked up and saw Luna, the lost little girl, high up in the tree. Stella thought the girl was way too high, and Vanguard agreed, looking up. Luna cried with relief but cursed the village chief Peter, calling him an idiot. Vanguard felt awkward with the little girl's reaction. He asked the group if anyone knew how to climb trees or was an expert in mountaineering. Stella and Your Majesty shook their heads, saying they didn't know. A monk player appeared, smiling slightly, and said, "Let me try." It was Asura and Lilith, both level 1. Asura commented that they arrived quickly. Vanguard recognized Asura and Lilith as the players from before near them. Asura positioned himself in front of the huge tree, ready to climb it. He took a quick and firm step toward the tree trunk. Asura ran up the side of the trunk, defying gravity. The monk dug his fingers into the bark of the tree to steady himself. Asura continued climbing, digging his fingers into the wood like claws. Peter watched everything from afar as Asura climbed the giant tree. The protagonist, eating snacks, wondered if it was the technique Buddha's fingers. Peter's eyes showed curiosity about the monk's Shaolin skill. The other players wished Asura luck, while Peter laughed with his group. The shameless one wanted to find hot springs afterward, not caring about the rescue. Peter thought humans were cold for not caring about the cute little girl. Asura finally reached Luna and asked if she was okay up there. Asura smiled kindly at Luna, telling her not to be afraid and that he would save her. He extended his hand to the scared little girl, asking her to hold it. Luna looked at his hand, still hesitant but holding her book. She finally agreed and held the monk player's outstretched hand. Asura pulled the little girl close, wrapping her in his protective arms. He held her firmly, warning that they would descend, and asking her to hold on. The monk began to release his fingers from the giant tree trunk. He completely detached his hands from the tree's bark to begin the descent. Asura slid down the trunk quickly with Luna in his arms. He landed on the ground a little out of breath, looking back, sweating a bit. Vanguard said that Asura seemed drained, and they needed to help him. Asura explained that even though they were strong, there was a limit. He used a lot of energy to climb. The monk was at his limit when the branch began to crack. Asura became desperate, realizing that the branch wouldn't hold their weight. The branch broke, sending both of them plummeting from above. The players below screamed as they saw Asura and Luna falling from the tree. Luna, terrified, screamed that she was falling while they tried to think of something. Asura had exhausted a lot of stamina and realized he couldn't hold on much longer. Even while falling, he tried to calm Luna, telling her not to be afraid so she wouldn't get hurt. The little girl hugged Asura tightly, closing her eyes during the scary fall. Asura fell fast, holding Luna tightly while the others watched. Lilith and Your Majesty shouted their names, looking up, very worried. Vanguard landed firmly on the ground, ready to rescue them with a quick warning. The strong player grabbed Asura and Luna in midair just in time, relief. Vanguard's hand gripped Ashura's shoulder, ensuring his hold. He managed to hold both of them successfully, avoiding the impact of the dangerous fall. Asura seemed surprised and relieved to have been saved at the last second. Peter canceled his magic, hidden, thankful that he didn't need to intervene. The shameless one scratched his head, admitting that he almost intervened before Vanguard. The group ran over to them, with Lilith asking if Asura and Luna were okay. Asura thanked Vanguard, saying they were fine and apologizing for the worry. Lilith smiled at Luna, offering to take her back to the village. Luna thanked everyone, her eyes full of tears from their help. A giant bird flew over them, followed by a flock making loud noises. Red feathers fell as Cosmic and Your Majesty looked confused at the sky. Luna panicked, saying they had taken her because of the stolen treasure. The players were surprised to hear about the Mountain King's treasure. A strong explosion sent dirt and rocks flying near the frightened group. A herd of various animals ran desperately through the forest. Mystical beasts like a winged tiger and a serpent appeared with great impact. Chase asked what that was, and Your Majesty looked too scared. Peter stretched, smiling calmly, ready for something. The shameless one smiled, thinking it was time to make the game more fun. Giant birds attacked, screaming as if they had completely lost their minds. The players looked up, seeing the massive number of birds coming. A winged white tiger with horns appeared, growling and approaching them. The mystical beast stared at the group of players who stood tense in front. Vanguard yelled in shock that it was a tiger with wings, intensifying the general fear. A giant bird flew toward the group, who fled in the background, screaming. Luna quickly picked up Lilith, carrying her son on her back to escape. The little girl told Lilith to run fast while she carried her on her back. The tiger roared, the birds attacked, and everyone screamed, "Run!" as they fled in terror. Stella ran, looking back and seeing the tiger chasing only her. The girl wondered why the tiger was chasing her like that. The winged tiger lunged, showing huge claws ready for a fierce attack. The beast jumped, but Stella managed to dodge at the last moment. Phew. Cosmic ran towards some thick vines hanging from the trees. She was fully focused. She jumped high and grabbed a vine, swinging to escape the danger. Stella swung on the vine like Tarzan, fleeing from the tiger with style. Stella landed in a pose on a thick tree branch high up. She crouched on the branch, watching the others below, still running away. Vanguard looked up angrily, asking if she was serious. The girl was surprised with herself, thinking about how she jumped so high. A giant monster bird appeared behind her, screaming loudly suddenly. The bird tried to grab Stella with its huge claws on the branch. She turned around, irritated, thinking she should focus on escaping quickly. Stella ran along the branch with a serious face to escape fast. The girl smiled, feeling her new speed, thinking it was super fast to run. The giant monster bird stood still, watching her flee along the branch. The bird then lowered its head, seeming to shift its focus of attack. Chase looked back, noticing the bird chose a new target. She panicked completely, seeing the giant bird flying toward her. Chase turned desperately, asking why the creatures were coming after her. The bird's sharp claws grabbed the blonde player's clothes. Vanguard shouted loudly for Chase to duck immediately. Be careful. The girl fell forward, screaming for help as the bird attacked her. Vanguard acted quickly and grabbed the bird's talon with both hands tightly. The bird screamed as the player held it, preventing the attack on her. With great force, Vanguard threw the giant bird to the ground with a strong impact. Chase thanked Vanguard, calling him brother, and he told her to return to the village. The horde of monsters roared fiercely behind the group, who were fleeing in terror. Peter remembered seeing some players just looking from the side before. Right. Those same players were now running desperately, shouting, "Run away fast!" The shameless one snapped his fingers with a gleam, seeming to have an evil idea. The trio of players continued running through the forest, trying to escape. One of them tripped badly on the ground, falling while trying to flee fast. The fallen player looked back, confused, asking what was happening. The ground behind them began to crack, suddenly creating a huge fissure. The three unlucky players fell into the hole, screaming for help in desperation. Vanguard turned around and shouted that he would save them, and Asura was surprised. Anti-Mage said it was too late to help, and it was better to head back to the village. The scene showed the peaceful novice village from afar, calm and serene. Life in the village continued normally, with residents and children playing happily. Your Majesty stopped, worried, saying that the horde would destroy the village this way. Anti-Mage asked for calm, saying they were just NPCs, and the mission was to return Luna. Vanguard disagreed, saying they needed to protect the innocent villagers now. The group stopped running, their feet together right at the entrance of the village. An overhead view showed the group stopped in the field before the village entrance. Lilith smiled kindly at Luna and told her to go home first. Lilith said they would leave the horde of monsters to the brave players. Vanguard told everyone to defend the village entrance so the creatures couldn't enter. Peter, hidden, grabbed a yellow handkerchief, thinking that wasn't too bad. The shameless one wiped a fake tear, smiling, thinking the scene was touching. Our hero decided it was time to act now. So okay, let's go. A blue aura appeared, and Peter's appearance began to change right there. He emerged with his unbounded form, blonde, saying, "End of the mission, newbie," in style. The players and monsters stared at each other at the village entrance, ready for the confrontation. Dark clouds quickly gathered, and the sky turned black, and Vanguard looked up, tense. Yellow lightning began to cut through the dark sky, filled with heavy clouds. A powerful bolt of lightning struck right in the middle of the clearing, near the players and monsters. The figure of unbounded Peter appeared amidst the electric bolts, impressive. He landed, surrounded by electricity with his blonde, masked, and very stylish look. Vanguard pointed, surprised, and Cosmic found him familiar for some strange reason. Your Majesty immediately recognized him. He was the handsome guy from the game's promotional video. Unbounded Peter landed gracefully, ready to show off his skills. He turned his back to the players, facing the threatening horde of monsters. Unbounded slowly raised his hand, preparing some special ability, perhaps. His hand glowed with golden energy, and he stared seriously at the ugly monsters. A giant blue sword of light fell from the sky, striking the horde with full power. The intense light from the giant sword blinded the players, who quickly covered their eyes. Vanguard lowered his arms, and the intense light disappeared, leaving only darkness. The smoke cleared, revealing the destruction. The power was incredible. He was strong. Unbounded, Peter snapped his fingers, and a yellow barrier appeared quickly. Vanguard and the others looked in shock at the golden protective barrier. He said the solar barrier would protect the village, preventing beasts from getting close. Unbounded warned that he hadn't driven the creatures away because of them outsiders, no. His red eyes stared seriously. He only protected the good people of the village. He threatened to erase Nicer anyone who dared harm the villagers without mercy. The masked hero turned his back and began to walk away from the group. Lilith shouted, "Wait, I have a question," and quickly approached him. Unbounded, Peter stopped his feet on the ground without turning to the player. The blonde girl cleared her throat a bit and asked, "Do you have a girlfriend?" Very direct. Vanguard and Stella were completely shocked by her question. Unbounded remained silent for a moment, not answering the bold question. He turned his head disappointed, mumbling that it was annoying. She looked sad behind him. Using a teleportation technique, he began to disappear. He completely vanished, thinking to himself, "I want a girlfriend." The scene shifted to Peter's boss room, where he returned to his original form. Peter's cape and normal clothes reappeared as the transformation faded. Peter's feet hit the floor of the room with a soft thud. He panicked, crying out, "What did I do? I turned down a cute girl." Peter went crazy, shouting, "I want a cute girlfriend like her," pulling at his hair. Luna kicked open the door, shouting, "Boss, you're a big bad guy!" Peter was startled, thinking, "Oh, crap." His conscience hurt like an arrow. The little girl cried, saying he had left her alone and scared her too much. Peter patted her head, trying to calm the upset girl. He apologized and whispered not to tell anyone. It was their secret? Luna mumbled that he'd bullied her and wasn't happy about it. Peter searched through his clothes, trying to find something quickly. He pulled out a patched-up teddy bear and offered it, asking for her forgiveness. Luna looked surprised at the teddy bear. It was her teddy bear, how nice. Peter smiled and explained that the bear had broken, and he asked the seamstress to fix it. The girl held back a laugh, puffing her cheeks but finding his way funny. Luna ended up laughing, hugging the teddy bear, forgiving the silly village chief. She agreed with his request as the player group finally arrived at the village. "Your Majesty called for everyone." Seeing Peter, Lilith asked who that was. Peter arrived with Luna, saying, "You saved her, Master Valen told me." Stella asked seriously, "Who are you?" Staring at the village chief. Our hero smiled, introducing himself as Peter, the chief of that village. The players were shocked. Peter was young, not the old man they expected, breaking the immersion. Vanguard and Cosmic joked, teasing him as the chief's son Peter was furious inside. Our hero cleared his throat, ignoring the teasing, offering work and housing as a reward. He took Luna's book and it floated glowing blue, promising to teach a spell. Vanguard asked excitedly what kind of magic spell that would be. Wow. Peter smiled mysteriously, revealing the name of the spell. The recognition technique. A ding-dong sound echoed as a notification from the system appeared, catching the player's attention. The system announced that the newbie mission was completed. Congratulations! They were now safe inside the closed beta. Even so, another notification appeared. Dying to Valen, the village protector, still caused expulsion. Peter closed the book and explained that the technique showed the name, level, and abilities of the targets. He continued, saying that leveling up unlocked better spells, and that using them increased their proficiency. The protagonist appeared, smiling at the village entrance, and as the chief offered to answer their questions. He welcomed them, made a prayer to the god Nicer asking for strength, and activated his new technique called Recon. The girl was radiant, shouting happily, "I did it!" and showed that she had managed to use the skill she learned. The window displayed her stats, which were quite bad. Common, slow, weak, silly, but at least she was pretty, poor thing. Vanguard and Chase burst into laughter, having too much fun with her terrible attributes. Cosmic was outraged, thinking that recognition was absurd. How could it be so bad like that? Another notification with a ding-dong reminded them that Nicer was a 6-dimensional game, very different and more complex. The system asked them to be patient, to listen to the chief, and to enjoy the experience. Peter cleared his throat. Peter smiled kindly and said that he knew medical techniques and could heal the wounded brought to him. Peter explained that the village was small but had everything like a tavern, a clothing store, and a forge. He also showed the martial arts hall and the weapon shop, saying they could find work there. The chief suggested they rest at one of the villagers' homes, or at the inn, because sleeping on the street would cause gossip. Stella asked curiously what they could do in the village and asked the chief to explain. Peter replied with a clever smile, saying they could look for jobs in the places he had already shown. He mentioned Alfred, the blacksmith, and Pudge, the butcher, who were in need of apprentices at the moment. Gondor accepted helpers to clean monsters, and Garrick, along with his daughter, needed help at the tavern. There was plenty to do, and anyone who wanted to leave could venture out, or train with Shige in the surrounding areas. The protagonist suggested hunting rats and selling their meat and skin, to the butcher Pudge, thinking it was a good idea. Even so, he recommended that no one leave the village just yet, which left the players confused. Peter explained in a cute way that he could heal, but not if someone was dismembered outside the village like that. Your Majesty asked where they kept their items and how the inventory worked within the game. Anti-Mage complained that they had no money for the inn, and Cosmic got mad because she'd have to work. Peter laughed, saying there was no inventory, and each person carried what they could, a shame for them. Your Majesty gently said there was one more question, and Peter said he'd answer everything calmly. The players began asking really silly questions, like if XP from other games counted, or if boogers did damage. Peter was extremely irritated, thinking, how is it possible that they're so dumb? My God, what a slow bunch. Vanguard asked Luna to take him to the butcher Pudge, and she happily agreed to accompany him. Luna ran ahead, shouting excitedly, "Uncle Pudge!" and headed straight to his shop. Pudge the butcher recognized the girl and asked where she had been because her father was looking for her. Vanguard asked Pudge to teach him how to cut meat, and that's when Garrick appeared, shouting, "Luna!" The father hugged his daughter tightly, asking where she had been and if she was okay, with a worried expression. Luna cried with relief and stayed in her father's arms, saying she was finally safe. She told him she almost didn't make it back and called him Daddy, then Garrick shouted Peter's name, furious. Peter understood that Luna had told him everything and realized that Garrick was burning with rage, glaring directly at him. Our hero nervously laughed and asked if Garrick wanted to discuss something important right then. Garrick responded, saying that Peter knew very well what he had done, and Peter asked for a moment to resolve it later. The shameless one turned to the players with a smile and dismissed everyone, saying he needed to talk to Garrick. Peter then used a skill that forced all the players in that area to log out. The avatars glowed with a blue light and fell to the ground, being disconnected from the game immediately. Peter turned back to face Garrick, who was still very angry and wouldn't take his eyes off him. Our hero said, "All right, now we can talk properly," while sounds of thuds echoed. Peter fell to his knees and began performing a very deep and exaggerated bow right there. He kept bowing quickly in front of Garrick's house while desperately begging for forgiveness. Garrick was confused, not understanding why the village chief was acting so crazy. Peter grabbed Garrick's hand, which held a cleaver, and began to apologize sincerely. He begged, saying that he used Luna to save the village and asked him to put down the cleaver and not kill him. Garrick sighed and said he would let it pass this time because his daughter was safe, and that was the most important thing. Peter stood up firmly, promising to think more carefully about future missions to avoid causing any more worries. The father accepted and said that he trusted him, then turned to head home, feeling at peace. Peter watched Garrick leave, pointing at him from a distance. He yawned, turning tiredly, saying that was enough for today. He was so exhausted. Peter opened the door to his room, turned on the light, and jumped straight onto the bed. The shameless one hugged a large waifu pillow and said he missed her. He sat there confused with the pillow, thinking, wait, what was I supposed to do today? Peter decided, to hell with it, grabbed a manga, and began reading happily. The scene changed to Earth in Silicon Valley at night, showing tall buildings. A meeting was taking place, and one man was talking about the goal of analyzing the game nicer on the projector. Another man said that it was impossible to have a holographic VR game at that moment. He explained that materials, chips, and advanced software were still lacking, and it would take decades to develop them. A third man agreed and said that current medicine didn't allow for transferring consciousness. Another participant asked if there was nothing to be done since normal VR was already at its limit. The second man explained that VR stimulates the brain, while Nicer transferred consciousness. An image of brainwaves appeared, showing the advanced technology of the Nicer game. One participant asked if humans could become immortal. Why would they still play Nicer? The second man sat down, clueless. Perhaps the VR helmets were just a facade, maybe. A man in a purple suit said he had contacted Nicer and tried to locate players without success. Suddenly, someone burst into the room shouting, "Boss, my research was a total success." The meeting room door was thrown open by the excited employee. The boss praised him, doubled his bonus, and asked for the research results quickly. The excited employee explained his plan to copy Nicer into a cheap web-based version that was pay to win. He finished his presentation, asking if the idea was good, but the room fell into complete silence. The boss furious. The boss ordered for the guy to be removed and fined him, then suggested destroying Nicer since they couldn't copy it. Back in the room, Peter was relaxed, reading a manga, hugging his waifu pillow. The servant appeared out of nowhere, calling Peter. He was startled, embarrassed. Peter complained, wanting privacy, and the servant mocked him, saying his alone time was just to read comics then. Our hero, embarrassed, pointed at himself and asked, "What do you need, Chief?" The servant said it wasn't anything serious, just that he needed to go to where her system was to help. On Earth, the meeting boss smiled wickedly, saying Nicer wouldn't escape. Nicer, watch out! At 3 a.m. Unbounded Peter appeared holding the servant in front of the Statue of Liberty, glowing. The online launch of Nicer caused urgent government meetings to discuss how to deal with the company. Some authorities wanted to cooperate with Nicer, while some players were forcefully disconnected from the game. One player went mad seeing Error 404 on the screen. Giant companies had tried to negotiate technology with Nicer before. The servant told him that the companies had offered to promote Nicer in exchange for sharing their advanced technology. She asked Chief Unbounded Peter what he thought of this proposal from the Earth companies. The servant didn't want any betrayed players, so she gave him divine authority to act with full force. With her eyes glowing purple, she told him to do whatever he thought was best. She trusted him. The scene changed, showing a large and important building, probably from the government, at night. The district president was reading a report. Nicer Corp was at least 20 years ahead technologically. He slammed the report shut angrily, calling the people from the previous meeting a bunch of useless idiots. The president's hand grabbed the report off his desk. He read it irritated, thinking his subordinates were idiots for suspecting aliens. The president slammed his hand on the desk, threatening to fire everyone the next day. He pushed the papers aside when his cell phone started ringing on the desk. He answered, and the investigator reported that 3 beta testers were invited for tests. The investigator explained that the players' bodies were in a deep REM sleep. The president, confused, asked what that meant. What was the point, after all? The investigator explained that Nicer influenced the brain through the VR helmets. The president grew even angrier. Nicer could hack and control minds, too. A different voice came through the phone. "Hello, are you the leader of the 6th District West?" The president was startled, asking who it was and where his investigator was now. Unbounded, Peter appeared on the roof of the building like particles of bright light. The masked hero said he had asked them not to harm his players. He had tracked the signal. The president understood immediately. "You're from Nicer Corp?" Unbounded replied, "Maybe." Unbounded Peter politely asked to return the phone to his subordinate first. The president on the phone changed his tone and offered opportunities for Nicer Corp to negotiate. Unbounded Peter frowned and replied directly, "I reject your proposal, sir." The president was shocked and angry at the direct response from Nicer Corp. He then threatened, saying that if Nicer threatened the district, they would ban the company. Unbounded, Peter began disappearing in digital data and hung up on him. The president lowered his phone, surprised, and thought, "He hung up on me. How audacious." The masked hero appeared behind his chair and said, "You'll regret that decision." The president turned, startled, and asked, "Who are you? How did you get in here so fast?" Unbounded bowed and introduced himself as Valen, administrator of Nicer Corp, pleased to meet him. Valen explained that he had the freedom to act, but didn't like using violence. Unbounded's hand grabbed the president's collar, pulling him quickly toward him. He leaned over the table and held the president. "What are you doing now?" The two disappeared from the office in a flash of golden light for a brief moment. They reappeared in the same place with Unbounded, still holding the frightened president. Unbounded smiled sideways and asked, "What do you think of the Black House, Mr. President? Did you like it?" The president trembled while agreeing to the conditions of not pressuring players and not banning Nicer. Unbounded stood up, warning that he had little time and threatened to make things worse if rejected again. The nervous politician said that others, like the Secretary of State, needed to agree as well. The hero asked for photos and addresses to visit everyone personally wherever they were. Unbounded disappeared in particles of light, ensuring that Nicer's players wouldn't be left out. Peter returned to the room excited and said, "Ai-chan, I'm back," as he happily opened the door. He jumped onto the bed, hugging the pillow and saying, "I worked too much today. How boring, Ai-chan." The servant appeared angrily behind him, calling Peter, and he was startled. Peter yelled angrily, "She scared me again. I have the right to privacy, Chief." The servant said, "Calm down. I just came to know how you made the big shots surrender. I wanted to learn." Our hero smiled and said, "Just throwing them into the Black House." The servant was confused. "What's that?" He explained that the Black House was a dark dimension where life froze, and it was terrifying. The servant thought about it and said that this punishment mentally broke the person, yes. Peter said that the bosses were almost dead but agreed to his conditions. He set it up so they would be released if they accepted one condition to avoid Hayatos' complaints. The condition was to write a novel or draw a manga to leave the torturing Black House. If the work was bad or the character lame, it would be rejected, and they would have to redo everything. To complete the task, they used their whole brain, and the president wrote, sweating a lot. Peter concluded that was why they accepted everything, fearing to return there afterward. The president held a furious meeting blaming the others. He suffered a lot because of those idiots. Peter hugged the pillow happily, and the servant thought the idea was brilliant. Only he would think of that. The servant turned to leave the boss's room, Peter's room. She commented that the good part was that the players could log in normally again now. The scene showed the novice village with players running and training happily again. Stella was lying on the grass with her eyes closed, peaceful. Stella slowly opened her eyes after meditating a bit there. The girl got up from the grass where she had been meditating peacefully before finishing. She smiled widely and said, "I finally managed to reconnect, hooray!" The player thought it was time to find a job now that she was back in the game. Cosmic saw Your Majesty sitting, looking dazed near a house there. Suddenly Cosmic felt her body heavy, dizzy, with blurred vision and no strength. The girl used the recon technique on herself to check her status. The window showed bad status like back pain, hunger, fatigue, and negative stats. She was shocked and confused, seeing all those negative effects on her. The girl couldn't believe she had debuffs for not sleeping or eating right. Vanguard appeared smiling, and Cosmic asked why he seemed so full of energy. He scratched his head and explained that he learned from Pudge, was disconnected, and Pudge helped. Flashback. Pudge helped Vanguard, who had fainted, by placing him in bed to rest. When logging back in, Vanguard woke up in bed, and Pudge gave him food, making him energized. Cosmic was horrified. The first mission was to find food and shelter. Vanguard suggested going to Barber's Inn to cure his back pain, which would help Pudge. Vanguard ran off, and Cosmic waved, smiling, thanking him for his help. The girl opened the inn door and entered with her stylish, high-heeled shoes. Cosmic spoke to the innkeeper, asking to stay there. Barbara, the owner, smiled and said, "Hello, young lady. It costs 300 gold coins per night." Stella awkwardly asked if she could charge it to her account, as she didn't have money at the moment. Barbara was surprised by the girl's lack of money. Her eyes closed. She got angry for being broke, and Cosmic got scared, thinking she looked intimidating. The innkeeper thought for a moment. She was busy and needed a business apprentice. The girl eagerly accepted, saying she was good with programs and that accounting would be easy. Barbara didn't understand anything and asked what kind of magic that was when mentioning PowerPoint. Stella bowed, asking for a chance and expressing her desire to be an apprentice in business. The innkeeper thought the girl was sincere, even though she didn't understand much of what she was saying. Barbara handed her a ledger and said she would be an apprentice if she could understand that. Cosmic took the book confidently, thinking it would be easy because she understood basic math. Her eyes widened when she saw the contents of the book, and she was surprised. What was that? The book was filled with strange symbols she couldn't understand. The girl asked what those letters meant, and Barbara angrily said she was illiterate. Cosmic showed numbers on a paper, suggesting a simpler accounting method. Barbara became furious and said she would only use her methods, calling Cosmic full of tricks. The player grabbed her leg, begging to be an apprentice. "Please, madam." Barbara thought a little more, her hand on her chin, and considered the girl's situation. She proposed to teach Cosmic to read in exchange for work as a school fee, and the girl agreed. Cosmic was shocked by the proposal, thinking it would be exploitation to work for free. She remembered her boss exploiting her in real life and became upset seeing that trick. Huang Quan became an oppressed apprentice, needing to learn a foreign language. Barbara hit Cosmic on the head and told her to copy it 100 times for getting everything wrong. The system notified a new skill, Britannia language, and changed to Business Apprentice Level 1. Stella celebrated, very happy, finally free from that forced labor. Back in the room, Peter was reading his manga peacefully in bed, eating snacks. Jim kicked the door and said, "Boss, are you in here?" Peter blocked, irritated, saying it was just a joke again. Jim entered confused and asked what was going on. Peter cleared his throat and quickly adjusted, asking if there was something important. Jim complimented Peter, saying he was very hard-working and the ideal boss. Our hero smiled humbly, saying learning never ends, and that he needed to be an example as the village chief. Peter thought, relieved that he hadn't ruined his pose, and was happy to have acted fast. Jim introduced himself and said he had a proposal and was hoping for Peter's help. Peter asked curiously what kind of help Jim needed, and requested the details. Jim explained that there were huge rats in the plains that were good for practical combat training. He wanted to build a watchtower nearby, so they could rest when injured. Peter spoke seriously, saying it would take a lot of materials and cost a lot of money. Jim smiled and said not to worry because he would handle it and could even build his house there. Our hero was surprised and asked if Jim really wanted to build his own house in the village. Peter asked for a moment and said he would return soon, sitting elegantly in the chair. He disappeared in a blue light, and Jim was left stunned. The servant called out, "Boss, boss," and Peter appeared, asking what the problem was now. He smiled and asked if that player was very rich on Earth by any chance. The servant touched a blue screen, showing Jim's information. She explained that he wasn't rich, but had the support of the government investigation team. Peter asked excitedly if they would spend a fortune to build a house in the village. The servant replied, "Theoretically, yes," and asked why he wanted money from Earth now. Our hero grabbed the servant, asking her to buy a VR PC and games and teleport them here, please. The servant pushed Peter and asked if he didn't want to be revived with necromancy. Peter accepted her request but said the fees for purchasing the land would be split. It would be divided between them 9.99 to 1, meaning almost everything would go to him. Our hero scratched his head and said, "Fine, she should get 50%. The servant grabbed him by the collar and said he would only get 0. Jim returned and said, "Boss, you're back." Peter whined that it would be just crumbs. Peter sat on the bed, composing himself to speak with the player who was waiting there. He explained that first, he would have to buy the land, then build a tower or house or whatever he wanted. Jim got excited and asked how much the land would cost. Peter smiled a little darkly and said that the price for a piece of land would be... He held up his hand and said, $5 million, nothing more, nothing less. Jim looked like a fool, totally confused. What did he say just now? He stammered, asking if he had just heard millions of dollars. Peter smiled and said, "Leave a message on the official website. A representative will call you soon." Jim was shocked. How did an NPC know about the official website? What a professional response. The player asked, "Boss, do you work for NicerCorp?" Peter laughed a lot at this. Our hero deflected, saying the price was set by Master Valen, it wasn't his problem. Peter shoved Jim out, saying, "I'm busy, don't interrupt me again, please." The shameless one threw Jim out the door confused, then slammed the door in his face. He sighed with relief after getting rid of the persistent player. Finally, phew. That was annoying. Peter smiled with his eyes closed, thinking about all that easy money he would make. He thought, still, it's easy money for us. It would be a waste not to take it, eh? Peter appeared on an imaginary tractor, mowing the lawn, thinking it was an easy harvest. What a joke. The servant appeared behind him saying, "I'm done here, boss," surrounded by blue screens. A notification appeared, ding dong, NicerPay received a transaction, all set. The servant looked at the blue screen carefully and confirmed the receipt of the money. The money arrived, it was $10 million. Peter was shocked by the high amount. The servant minimized the screen, saying it was pocket change for a district, they wouldn't care about this amount. Peter asked, "What will you do with $10 million? What's the plan for the land then?" The servant explained, "Maybe an embassy since the village is the only contact with Valen now." She continued, "These people admire your powers. They plan to gain your favor, boss. Be careful." Our hero asked curiously, "Why do you want so much money, boss? What's the reason?" The servant replied, "Simply prize money." This made Peter even more confused. Stella was drooling asleep at the table, talking about not wanting inheritance while sleeping. Chase shouted the name Huang Quan, and Stella jumped awake, startled. The group of players arrived smiling, and Chase said they were there to see her. Stella quickly signaled for silence, pointing her finger to her mouth while looking to the side. Chase laughed and asked why she looked so scared, but Cosmic covered her face. She pulled a wad of paper from her ear, looking confused while Drunk Soda was speaking. The blonde player asked again what was going on with the colleague, so let's see. Barbara shouted angrily from the door, telling them to stop the noise, or she would throw them all out onto the street. The players covered their ears in pain, and Drunk Soda complained that he went deaf from the shout. Stella closed the book because she remembered warning them that the innkeeper hated loud noises. She rubbed her sleepy face and asked why they were all there to meet her after all. Drunk Soda said they came to see her new skills, but still complained about his ears. Cosmic replied that she had learned some things, and her hands shone, showing the new skills. The screen displayed the skills: trading, finance, traveling, and Britannia language levels 1 and 2. Vanguard scratched his head confused, commenting that the skills had nothing to do with fighting. Drunk Soda asked what Britannia was, and if Cosmic planned to become one of them, then perhaps. The group burst out laughing, mocking Stella for learning a foreign language in the game. Cosmic got furious and asked, "What's so funny about that? You idiots, stop it already." Drunk Soda asked for calm, then invited Stella on a monster hunting trip together. The girl seemed surprised by the invitation and asked about the monster hunting trip that was so unexpected. Drunk Soda said, "Exactly, and our levels rise slowly as apprentices, so it would be easier to level up by hunting monsters." Stella asked, irritated, "Are you showing off, or are you laughing at me for not having combat skills?" Your Majesty stepped forward with a bow and said, "You misunderstood, Huang Quan. We came to show this to you." Cosmic crossed her arms and turned her face, saying she wasn't interested in this right now. She became curious. What will it be? And since they stayed silent, she decided to take just a quick peek. Her eyes widened in surprise, and she was impressed with what she saw. It was a beautiful bow with a full quiver. A weapon, and where did you get this from, guys? Cosmic stammered, I'm not interested, but your face says everything. So Drunk Soda asked, are you sure? Drunk Soda explained, Anti-Mage became an apprentice blacksmith yesterday and learned to forge, so he asked her for wood. She didn't expect him to forge such amazing weapons, so they prepared this for Stella. Even without combat skills, she would know how to pull a trigger correctly, as it was meant for her as a gift. Anti-Mage smiled and said, don't exaggerate. It's just a wooden crossbow that doesn't shoot far. He patted Drunk Soda on the shoulder and said, if we manage this, Nicer will enter the Industrial Age. Vanguard smiled and invited them to hunt monsters together. Stella seemed apprehensive and uncertain about the invitation. She turned to Vanguard, holding the new crossbow she had received from her friends. Cosmic smiled awkwardly and said, sorry, I'm a bit busy right now, so you guys can go ahead. She urged them to go, and the group stood there staring at her. Go on already. Barbara appeared angrily on the stairs and said, you've been stalling all day, and I lost money. Pay attention. Stella looked at the innkeeper, startled, and said, Madam, not knowing what to do. Stella smiled and thought, I always thought she was mean, but she's actually reasonable. Barbara then said, but you can take the rest of the day off to rest, okay? She remembered that Cosmic hadn't paid for the lessons, and would need to return at night or she wouldn't survive here. The group of players called Stella, and she excitedly went to meet them. Let's go! Barbara watched her leave while reading her book filled with strange symbols. The innkeeper smiled slightly with her eyes closed and muttered, just a little. She then thought, stubborn brat, while holding the ledger close. The group of players left the village, and Vanguard asked what had happened back there. They were walking through the grassy field near the forest, heading down the path away from the village. Your Majesty asked if they didn't know, as 2 plots of land had been sold for real money. Cosmic was shocked. 5 million per plot? They spent a lot on those 2. She thought, why would anyone buy land inside a game? Doesn't make sense. Cosmic imagined real estate companies invading the game, with a Nicer real estate agency involved. Vanguard explained that he had heard about plans to build a watchtower nearby. Your Majesty confirmed that she had heard about it too, but didn't know many details of the plan. She grabbed her bow and an arrow, preparing to use it right there. Stella was shocked and asked if Your Majesty really knew how to shoot a bow. Your Majesty smiled confidently and said she had trained in basic archery for 2 days, and her aim was good. She explained that she had learned the skill Eagle Eye, which improved her vision and aim for hunting rats. Stella was very excited and said, how amazing! I want to try shooting too! Vanguard warned Stella about friendly fire from the crossbow, and she smiled excitedly. Your Majesty tensed up and pulled the string of her bow, preparing to shoot. She released the arrow with force, shooting toward the monsters ahead of them. The arrow flew swiftly through the air, glowing slightly as it hit the target. The shot hit the giant rat's stomach, causing blood to splatter. Anti-Mage and Drunk Soda cheered as the shot had been accurate. The giant rat lay wounded on the ground while smaller rats were nearby. The monster rat turned its head, showing its sharp teeth, looking very angry now. Anti-Mage clenched his fist and complained about the poor aggro system that attracted more monsters. The group of players got ready for battle, with Vanguard, Your Majesty, and Anti-Mage armed. Anti-Mage thought this was the fun part, and they charged toward the rats. The scene changed to a room with a PC, where the stream Novice Village Papa had 1,000 followers. Peter's face appeared near the camera, and the chat commented on the shaky image. Peter asked Live if they could see him and asked for a yes in the chat to confirm. He smiled, holding a box, and talked about unboxing the PS5, asking for gift rockets. Peter searched for his knife, and the servant appeared behind him. The chat praised her beauty. He looked confused reading the chat, which was commenting on the servant behind him without understanding anything. Peter turned around and saw the servant standing. The chat commented on the tense silence. Boss! He turned off the stream, annoyed, complaining that the servant scared him during his unboxing. The servant ignored him, handed something over, and said there was a new mission for him to do before playing. Peter received a document and asked, "What is this?" As the title read, Reward Project Instance. His eyes focused on the title, and he seemed to be thinking about what it could be before looking again. He was holding the document titled Reward Project Instance of Novice Village, which shimmered slightly. Peter flipped through the book, remembering hearing about instances where teams completed missions together. The servant said he didn't understand instances yet, because humans needed to live and earn salaries. He thought for a moment and then asked, "So to motivate players to spend time in the game, the reward would be..." The servant pointed a finger and said simply, "cash," as the final reward for the instance. Peter scratched his head and asked, "Where are you going to get that much money, boss? That's a lot." The servant got up from the bed and replied, "The money you earned from selling the land, of course." Peter got excited and said, "Let's take a look at the information about this instance first, then..." The screen showed instance number 1, max group 1 person, monster strength weak. How easy. A cute drawing showed 2 boys happily reading books together in a basement, having lots of fun. The text explained that they aged while waiting for death, and their souls later turned into ghouls. One old ghoul was asking for a girlfriend while the other pointed at him, calling him a zombie. What a sad end. Peter threw the book forcefully onto the table, outraged by that instance description there. He felt offended because the tags pointed at him. Isolated bachelor, manga reader, seriously. Peter asked angrily who she was mocking and criticizing, but the servant replied it was obviously him. The scene shifted to Earth in the girls' dormitory. A girl was calling, "Sister Jue, wake up now." Her roommate shook Sister Jue, telling her to get up because she didn't remember what day it was today. Sister Jue woke up still half asleep, then remembered. Today was the day to build the tower in Nicer. Her roommate asked about the tower, saying today were the final exams and she was way too late. Sister Jue repeated the words, then her eyes widened as she realized the harsh truth right there. She screamed, "Final exams!" and sat up in bed, terrified by the situation. Damn. Sister Jue grabbed her phone and saw the time. It was already 8:46 in the morning. She panicked, thinking, "My God, I'm going to be way too late for the test." Crap! A teacher in the classroom asked if anyone had more questions before the test started. The teacher warned, "No cheating, no peeking, no leaving early," and asked for phones on the podium, okay. Sister Jue hesitantly raised her hand and then called, "Professor," with a somewhat shaky voice still. The teacher replied, "Yes, Jade, what is it?" "Go ahead and ask your question now." Jade asked awkwardly, "Which subject are we being tested on right now, Professor?" Then smiled. She received the exam and saw it was all written in strange, incomprehensible symbols. Jade was desperate, thinking, "I can't answer a single question. Damn, what bad luck." She rubbed her eyes and thought, "All right, I guess I'll fall behind and have to repeat the year then, okay." Her hand hesitated with the pen over the test, not knowing what to do at that moment. She decided, screw it, I can't repeat. I'll just copy the answers first, quickly now. Back at the meeting, the scientist explained that Nicer could implant knowledge directly into her brain like that. The scientist was excited and said, "We can mass-produce educated workers for the R&D department then." The president cleared his throat and said, "All right, I understand. I'll contact Nicer. You may go now." The scientist told the president that he still had, but was interrupted by the boss before he could finish. The president replied that anything else should be discussed next time, and dismissed the scientist immediately. If you made it this far into the video, thank you so much. Leave a like and a comment so YouTube can recommend us to even more people. I'll leave 2 video suggestions here that I'm sure you're going to enjoy. That's it for now. Thanks a lot and see you next time, folks.